Hi, I'm Joe from As the Joe Flies,
And I'm Leslie from Trips with Tykes.
and welcome back to Disney Deciphered. So, on today's episode, we are going to talk about some things that you are spending too much money on at Walt Disney World and discuss some minor hacks to either help you save money or stretch your dollar a little bit further. However, there's a bit of a selfish reason behind that, Leslie. I am ready to officially announce the increase of our prices in Patreon tier. We're going to save you some money and then we're going to charge you some extra money. I know it's not great timing, but honestly, this is just how the timing worked out. So it's just ironic in a Alanis Morissette kind of way. We'll have some more details at the end of the episode, but let's get started now. Leslie, who do we have from our current Patreon subscribers to thank?
Yes, you left the good part to me. So we're thanking new supporters Melissa V, Stephanie R, and Bethany G made a one-time donation. If you want to join at the low prices that we have now or support the podcast in any way, go to patreon.com/Disney Deciphered. Thanks to everybody. And I'm glad we're giving people a long runway. And I will say, Joe, these price increases are far below the price increases of eggs right now.
Oh my gosh. Don't even, let's not talk about eggs. I'll also say, just for full disclosure, I checked other Disney podcasts and their Patreon supporting levels, things, whatever, and tried to keep it in line with that. All right, enough with all of that. Let's get to saving money. And we should say that please don't support us if you cannot afford to. We want you to use your money for what you need to use your money for. Eggs, possibly. This is going to be, hopefully this will be so outdated soon, but we never know. But what we wanted to talk about is, Leslie, you and I have been discussing, we've gotten more bougie. We spend more money in our older age as we have gone on in life. However, there are things at Walt Disney World that I feel like even first-time guests feel like that they need to buy or purchase or pay for, that Leslie and I really think you can get away with. You can save money by not doing this. We're not saying that we don't pay for these things, but we don't always pay for these things, honestly, if we're being for real. And you can get away with it. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about stuff you can try to avoid spending money on, but when applicable, we'll try to give you a little hack or a little tip for how, if you still want that or some version of that, you can save some money. Just a shout out to Shannon at WW Prep School. She's been doing some great work on Instagram, and she had a post that was similar to what we're doing. I think we only have one thing overlapping, maybe 1 and 1.5, but shout out to her. Follow her on Instagram at WW Prep School if you'd like. But that is what inspired this episode, and I always want to give credit where credit is due. Okay, enough jibber jabber. Leslie, let's start with the first thing that we're spending money on that we probably don't need to.
Okay, first thing I think a lot of people feel like they really have to have is Memory Maker. And the price of this, like all things at Disney, the price of this has gone up in recent years. So Memory Maker, if you're unaware, is basically the service that lets you access PhotoPass photos that the Disney photographers take. And you pay one price, and it's for the course of a month long that you can possibly cover it. We have a Memory Maker episode that we'll leave in the show notes that you should go check out. But you really don't need it in this day and age if it is a hardship in terms of the budget, because we all have phones in our pockets now, Joe. I mean, probably your kids, if they're old enough, have phones in their pockets too. And cast members will take photos with your phone in the vast majority of circumstances, so you can get the whole family in the picture. I mean, you do have to just work a little bit harder, but the vast majority of the time you can get the same photos that the PhotoPass photographers will be taking with your own phone and not pay for that Memory Maker upgrade.
There's like very few occasions where they won't take the phone for you. I mean, worst case scenario, the joke is always that mom's not in the picture because mom's taking the photo, but there's usually a cast member, like if it's a character or whatever, there's a cast member nearby who will take the picture for you with your phone. And in fact, they make sure that the pictures aren't happening at the same time so that you can have a separate photo, because, it's selfish for them as well, because they'll still try to sell you their version of the photo. I would say especially, we've been kind of railing against these ever since they came about, but since they have those shadow boxes that are they're not even human photographers at some of the character meet and greets, I just think you don't need Memory Maker. I think the one thing that you miss out with Memory Maker is the ride photos, except for, Leslie, Now they include it in Lightning Lane Multipass. So I assume they include it in Premier Pass too if you're going to spend $450 or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So you're getting access to those anyway. And I'm with you on those shadow boxes. You'll probably get better photos on your phone. And the vast majority of the time, the photos you're taking with characters are going to be of your kids. So, you can move your feet, you can get better angles. I mean, and then a cast member can get that photo with the whole family at the very end of that meet and greet. The other reason I should mention too, Joe, that I don't think you necessarily need Memory Maker is because I'm finding that photographers can sometimes be few and far between. I have had a harder time in recent years than I did, say, pre-COVID, finding PhotoPass photographers in the locations I need them to be in to take a photo. So if you're spending your time looking for a photographer and there's not one where you want it to be, or the line's really long for the photographer because they're in such short supply, then you're paying all this money and then you're sacrificing quality of your vacation just because you've paid all this money and you want to get your money's worth. It's the classic sunk cost fallacy, which we talk about a lot here at Disney.
We love a sunk cost fallacy discussion here at Disney Deciphered. The one thing you can't get that you do get with Memory Maker is those magic shots where you're standing in front of the castle, they have your young kid put their hand out, and then when you look at the picture, voila, Tinkerbell is standing in their hand. So that is what you miss out if you're only using your food. If you really want to get Memory Maker, here's a hack to mention. If someone buys Memory Maker, and in fact, this is not only a hack, but it's also important if you don't know how it works. If my family goes and all my kids and my wife, they have their own magic bands, I buy the Memory Maker for myself, I can download photos for all of my friends and family. So I can download it for my wife and my kids. You don't put the Memory Maker on everybody's account. It's like one person's in charge of it. Because of that, a little hack that you can use is you can share it amongst families. So this is great for group trips. You have to do some math, and we talked about it in that Memory Maker episode. Basically, you have a 75-day window. You could even share it with a neighbor who's going the next week. Disney doesn't really know or care who your friends and family are. So if you really want Memory Maker, you can split that cost with other families. One person's going to be in charge of all the pictures, but they can download the pictures for everybody. So that's our little Memory Maker hack for you. If you still want to spend for it, like we said, you can probably save the money by not completely spending at least the full pre-purchase price. Crazy.
And I have a little corollary to that, Joe. A lot of annual pass holders have Memory Maker included on their annual pass. You can share that Memory Maker, and say you have a podcast co-host who has an annual pass. You might be able to get Memory Maker that way. Thanks, Joe.
I don't know what you're talking about. I can neither confirm nor deny that ever happened. All right, Leslie, what's the next thing we can save some money on?
All right, next thing you can save money on, and I can't believe I'm saying this, Joe, because I've been saying this, I said this for Disneyland a few weeks ago, and now I'm saying it for Disney World. Park hopper. You maybe don't need it, and we have experienced ourselves, there is enough to do in each and every Disney park, maybe with the exception of Animal Kingdom in its current state, to fill an entire day. I mean, maybe there's not enough rides and you're going to have to stand in some long lines for all of them. But if you do things like dining and shows and character meet and greets and all of that, you are going to fill a day, a full day, even with the longest park hours at least 3 out of the 4 parks. So park hopper, while it's a nice perk, and while I love to do it because I like going to Epcot at night to eat, especially during food festivals, it is not a necessity. And when you're a big family and you're adding that to the cost of every park ticket, it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So I would say maybe for that Animal Kingdom day, that shorter day that maybe you can't fill right now, use that as your rest day, half day on, half day off, and skip the cost of park hopper. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, I agree. I also think park hopper, and this is true for everything we're talking about today, it's a blanket add-on. By the way, people always get confused. Like, you can't only add park hopper to one day. You add it to the length of your ticket, no matter whether you use it for one day or all days of your ticket. And it's a blanket add-on that is around $90 to $100-ish per person. And all the things we're talking about today, you get into the scenario where it's like, well, it's just 90 times 4. And then you're like, in the grand scheme of my $5,000 Disney vacation, maybe that's not that much. In a vacuum, probably okay. But as these things add up, like we just talked about Memory Maker, that's $170 to $200. Then you add park hopper, that's another $360. Like, you're just getting nickeled and dimed because you feel like the incremental cost is so low. So you can definitely get away without having park hopper. Now, our hack here for park hopper, it's not going to save you money. Actually, you're going to probably end up spending a little more money, but I think it's a better way to park hop. And that is if you have, say, a 2 or a 3 day ticket, buy a after hours party, spend 6 hours at a different park, because you get a 3 hour mix in period and then you have 3 hours of the after hours parties. If you can stay up late, I feel like that's a much better way to park hop. That's a much more enjoyable usage. You get more, even though it's more expensive, like a after hours party ticket is probably like $180 versus the $90. Like if you really want to park hop, I think you're going to get so much more out of that $180 than you do out of the $90 for adding the park hopper add-on, or $100 depending on how long your ticket is.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you're going to get shorter ride lines for that after hours party, whereas you might not get that if you're park hopping, because by the time a lot of people park hop, unless they're park hopping, say, to Magic Kingdom, a lot of lightning lanes in a lot of the parks are gone. So unless you're kind of sacrificing lightning lane in the morning to save it for the afternoon, then, there's a lot of strategy here that you have to consider. You'll get in more rides in the hop by doing something like an after hours party instead.
All right, next thing that you maybe are spending too much money on, your Disney resort hotel. Now, 5 years ago, I probably would have said maybe you don't need to stay on site at all. I do feel like off-site prices, with the caveat that we always give, you're going to get more space for your money off-site. However, just in terms of like your cheapest hotels and stuff like that, unless you stay at like motel, below Motel 6 motel, you're probably spending close to the same amount as a value. And plus in Orlando, you got to throw in like a lot of these resorts have resort fees and things like that. So we used to say staying off site is going to save you a lot of money. Probably not so much these days. However, even if you're made the decision to stay on site, I still think you may be spending more for your hotel than you want to. Like you may be spending for a moderate when you can probably get away with a value. You may be spending for a deluxe, which, I love the deluxe resorts, but you only use the pool once and your kids don't even stay up late enough for extended evening hours, which is the major deluxe resort benefit. So I feel like sometimes we trick ourselves, and this is where it does matter what your family is like. But if you say this and this is the truth, it's just somewhere to sleep, then I don't know if you really need to stay like a level up. You can always go a level down. Like I think deluxes can go a level down to moderate and moderates can go a level down to values. And of course, we have examples. I'll do the moderate example, Leslie. If I'm staying at a moderate hotel, Port Orleans, Riverside, French Quarter, Coronado Springs in the Village area, not the Tower, I'm taking buses everywhere. Why not save $100 a night, stay at Pop Century, and have the Skyliner to Hollywood Studios and Epcot? So not only am I saving money, but I'm saving time with the Skyliner, which is also money. And if you're thinking about staying deluxe, I mean, we have a moderate option that we love, maybe a quasi-moderate option that we love, right, Leslie?
Yes, yes, you love it especially. You love staying in the Grand Destino Tower at Coronado Springs because it does have a club level like a deluxe, and it's a little bit nicer and newer, and so you kind of feel like you're staying deluxe, but you're paying moderate plus prices.
Yeah, I think the other thing about Grand Destino is if you're staying at a deluxe because you think they'll be the nicest rooms, Grand Destino rooms are as nice as most of the deluxe rooms and newer in some circumstances. So I definitely think twice, especially, this year. You joke about the price of eggs, Leslie, but this year budgets are tight. So if you can save money by going one level down, then that could make a difference. Think about, you could buy like half a dozen eggs with the money you save dropping from a deluxe to moderate.
That's right. That's right. And it's really easy to get tricked here. I mean, 9 times out of 10, if I'm traveling solo, I just need a bed to sleep in. I am staying in a value. That value is usually Pop Century because I love the Skyliner. But this last trip that I went on, I had to do like a one night, and I was like, oh gosh, Coronado Springs was only maybe like $40 or $50 more a night in not the Grand Destino Tower, the outer buildings. And so I was like, oh, maybe I should stay moderate. And then I really just used it to sleep and shower and left the room. And I was like, I could have saved that and bought a day of Lightning Lane and then some. And I kind of regret it. I'm glad I got to see it. It had been a decade since I'd stayed in Coronado Springs. But if you're not a blogger trying to get the content, then don't fall victim to that.
And just a reminder, until your kids get to a certain age, they don't care. Like, they really don't care. And if you need, again, with the space, if you need the space, like if you need a suite and stuff like that, those prices are nuts. The only kind of cheaper option is Art of Animation Family Suites, which will give you the space you need. Maybe you're looking off site then to save the money if you're looking for the space, or renting DVC points or something like that. But yeah, be careful that you're not overspending on your hotel. All right, we got 3 more of these to go. Before that, we'll take a quick break and then we'll be right back. All right, Leslie, this next item has received quite a bit of flack on this podcast over the years, but we can't help ourselves. This is how we feel. We feel the way we feel. What's the next thing that people might be spending too much money on?
Dining plan. You don't need it. You and I are not fans of the dining plan, and we've said that many times in this podcast over the years. It's just way too much food. It's more food than you probably want to eat or have time to eat in Disney parks, and especially in the summertime. I mean, the last thing you want to do is eat like just massive quantities of food. You're so hot. So I am not a fan of the dining plan. I'd much rather have the flexibility to eat on the go. I like the food festivals at Epcot. I like being able to grab little bites here and there at odd times, and the food festivals enable that. So it's really tough unless you're planning out your dining meal by meal, and maybe that's more rigidity than you want. It's tough to get value from it.
Definitely agree with that. I mean, we've said it many times here. The other thing is, like, if you are planning it meal by meal, like that, sometimes that takes the spontaneity out of it, which, or you end up feeling, you're going to force March of Happiness some kids to a restaurant that they don't want to go to. So that can be tricky. Even when I've done the math on my last trip with my daughter, just the two of us, just because of where we were going, it made mathematical sense to get the dining plan. Even with that, I still felt stress. I knew that I had already come out ahead. I still felt stressed because I had 2 snacks left over. It does end up adding like extra stress that you don't need, because I'm like, oh, these are free snacks, or like I paid for them already. So definitely agree with all those points. Now, the way you can hack this is, it's important to know that dining plan is going to need to go on every person in a room. So if my family of 5 is staying in one room, then all 5 of us need to get the dining plan. However, you can use dining plan credits for other people. So again, if you are in a group, or say the grandparents are coming along, you can just buy the dining plan for one room, and you're still going to have to do all the planning. You're still going to have to do all the math, but you can make the math make more sense because you're only buying it. You're not buying it for everyone. You're sharing credits amongst people. So that's one way to hack it. The other way to hack it is you can front load or back load your table service dining on a split stay. And again, you can see, you're going to have to keep doing the math no matter what, but at least you can make it worth it. Ensure that you're definitely not overeating, not overpaying, not paying more than what you would pay for food anyway, because sometimes people like quick service is just enough, but you go to table service because you have the dining plan. And in that instance, you're spending more money than you would have otherwise.
Yeah, and we should say a split stay is a way to hack a lot of these things at Disney, because maybe you're just getting that upcharge for part of your trip, and then the rest of the trip you're just having food festival food or counter service, or you're having a value resort or things like that. So we are big fans of split stays, especially if you're going for like a full week, because I like to try just different resorts. So there are definite money saving hacks that are built into that process. So you have here in the show notes, Joe, sandwiches. And I don't know what that's about.
That
so
was a joke. Bring your own sandwiches into the park.
Oh.
Save some money. Okay, that was just a throwback to when we went as kids. I don't know about your mom, but my mom packed sandwiches. Actually, now that I'm like joking aside, remember that you can do grocery delivery to your hotel, and you can actually bring in sandwiches or whatever you want. They don't prevent you from bringing food into the parks. So, I mean, if you're doing that, you're going to save a ton of money over even eating quick service at Walt Disney World. But, assuming that you're there and you don't want to, I mean, the best thing, we just got off a cruise last week. The best thing was not having to worry about what we were going to eat and not doing any dishes. You probably don't want to do the grocery delivery version, but that's an option. If you get the dining plan though, you're just eating Disney stuff all the time. And that's how they get you. Like you've prepaid for your food and they're keeping you on site even and away from the delivery services. All right, next one, Leslie, is fireworks dessert parties. I think sometimes people feel pressure to do the fireworks dessert parties because they think that is going to be the only way that they can see the fireworks. I've only done a fireworks dessert party when I was like hosted or it was paid for me. Even then, I'm not sure I felt like it was worth it. Leslie, have you done one of them? I know you haven't paid for one, but have you like had a hosted one before?
I've had a hosted one, but it's been a long time. And I've paid for one at Disneyland, not at Disney World. I'm not a big nighttime spectacular kind of person. And oftentimes I find myself just petered out at the end of the day. Certainly my kids are petered out at the end of the day. And maybe we skipped the fireworks, even though we were dead set when we started the morning in doing that. And then you're kind of just, you're invested, you're booked, you can't have any flexibility. And you can often get plenty good views of fireworks in a lot of places. And sometimes I found, and maybe this is more true on the West Coast than the East Coast, that the parties actually don't have that great of a view. That drives me crazy. It was like when you paid for like a dining package or a fireworks dessert party and then you still have a pole in your way. That's annoying.
Jenny Nicholson would like a word, Leslie. But the other thing is it's confusing what parties there are. I think the one to me that unless you have mobility issues, unless you need a seat, and I guess that would be a reason to do this party if you can't like stand up for fireworks. But the Seats and Suites party, which is one of the parties at Magic Kingdom, you're sitting outside Tomorrowland Terrace. You don't even have a direct on view of the castle for Happily Ever After. So you don't have as good a view of the projections. The angle on the fireworks is a little bit off because like the best place to see it is like head on straight down Main Street. The other two parties, the pre and post dessert party, they have you in the gardens, which is a good view. But yeah, there are some poles, lamp poles and trees and whatnot. So the view is good, but it's like $130 per person. It just doesn't feel worth it. There are three ways that we have that you can hack your way around these dessert parties. The first way is good old fashioned line up 20 to 30 minutes, or if you're really want the best spot, 45 minutes before the fireworks. Eventually they'll move you when they start putting tape down for walkways and stuff like that. But, if you're in the hub 30 minutes before, you're going to have a direct on view of the castle and you're going to be fine. The second thing that you can do, Leslie, is you can go to the Polynesian, watch the fireworks from the beach. That works every day except for New Year's and July 4th. Or a new place I found was at the Grand Floridian near Sago Key, which is kind of where they have some boats docked there. There are actually steps that you can sit on and you can watch the fireworks from there. They pump the music in both places. Obviously, you don't see the castle projections at either, but you get a good fireworks show that way. Of course, you can, spend a ton of money, eat at California Grill, stand on the sky bridge between Bay Lake Tower and Contemporary. There's a lot of places in the resorts to look. But if you still want to spend around $600, Leslie, I think there's one option that I feel like 9 times out of 10 is going to be better than the dessert parties. And what is that?
That's right. And I think at this point we've both done it, Joe. It's the fireworks dessert cruise that you can do from the Grand Floridian. You take like a pontoon boat out into the water there, and then you see everything sort of from the water looking into the gates of Magic Kingdom. And at least in my case, we got a grand tour of Seven Seas Lagoon, more than just the fireworks. You get to take a look around and see some of the other hidden spots on that waterway. So it's pretty cool.
I have not done it, believe it or not,
Oh,
since I've
I
spent
thought you
money
did
on
it.
like every other thing that you could possibly spend money on at Walt Disney World. But yeah, it's on my list. I hear you get some like light desserts too. Nothing on the level of the parties, but I don't love the party desserts anyway, if we're being honest, and not really alcohol or anything either. But again, you're just there to see the fireworks. It's around for the family of 4. It's like right now it's running around $600. So a family of 4, it's around the same price as the dessert party. You can get up to 10 people on one of those boats. This is like VIP tour math here. 10 people, that's $60 each. You can save a lot of money that way. They do book up quickly. They book out at the 60-day window, just like dining and activities and things like that. But you can book, for your length of stay. So go ahead and call those in early. And I think that's a better use of your money to see the fireworks. You don't get to see like the full castle projections, but it's good enough. You see the booms, which is the big part. All right, last thing that people are spending too much money on, Leslie. I am probably the most guilty of this. Okay? You think Disney nickels and dimes you? You know who nickels and dimes weak parents like myself? Our children. On any given trip, it's like, oh, can I have a Mickey bar here? Can I have a frozen lemonade there? Oh, can I get this stuffy here? Can I get this pin there? One thing that we all spend too much on, just like I said, you're getting nickeled and dimed. It's just a little purchase at a time. I think souvenirs, random snacks, random Diet Cokes, all that stuff, that is stuff that just adds up over time on a Disney vacation. Not to mention the fact that if you are me, when you get home with all this stuff that your kids bought, your wife complains about all the new crap that you have in the house. So what is a hack? What is a way that we can get around this, Leslie? Not just for the kids, but for adults too.
So this is just old-fashioned budgeting, Joe. So plan an amount that you're going to spend and stick to it. And the way you can do this is by buying a gift card, Disney gift card, in advance of your trip for a set amount of money. And of course, you can buy those at a discount, like Target Red Card, get 5% off. So you're saving a little bit of money on those souvenirs. And you tell the kids that they're spending money for the trip, and you hold them to it, hold yourself to it if you're doing it as well. And one thing, I mean, I have an older child now, a teenager, who has a phone. You can add that gift card to the phone as well. So that's something that's nice to the wallet on the iPhone. So you can hopefully not have any lost gift cards. Keep the gift cards for the younger kids. Don't let them have it. But definitely a good way to budget and to limit the I want that. If the kids know, like, I have $50 this week, so that's going to be enough for a stuffy and a couple Mickey bars, and that's it.
I didn't know you could add it to the phone. Does it work like for mobile pay, or is it just, I know you can add to the phone and they can just read the number or the barcode, right?
Yeah, the barcode. I've never used it for tapping mobile pay.
Yeah, I don't think you
it's
can tap,
always
but
been scanned. Yeah.
The barcode works. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
then they can't lose it.
Exactly. They're not going to lose the phone. The teenager will not lose the phone.
I've seen what some of my students do with their phones. It's
No.
not pretty. But yeah, so like you said, old-fashioned budgeting, I think that works really well. And, you're also teaching your kids life lessons at the same time. I have found that whenever kids have a set amount of money, they don't spend it actually. Like when it's their money, they don't spend it. No problem spending it when it's mom and dad's money, but when it's their money, so sometimes you might have to put a rule, like you have to spend it.
Yeah, exactly. We've had that same problem the couple times that we've done gift cards, or like we've told them ahead of time. Sometimes we don't do the gift cards. We just tell them it's $50 for this trip. We had a really hard time, I remember, at Disneyland Paris with them finding what they wanted to spend the $50 on.
All right. So that does it for this episode. If you have anything that you think people spend too much money on at Walt Disney World, please let us know. DisneyDeciphered@gmail.com. Disney Deciphered on social media. Before we get to Disney do's and don'ts, wanted to talk really quickly about the Patreon subscriber tier increases. So Laugh Floor, the lowest tier where you get ad-free episodes and our bonus trip reports, that's going to be priced at $4 now. And then Disney Decipherer, which also adds our unfiltered episodes, is going to be priced at $8 now. Not to worry, if you're a current Patreon subscriber or even a past Patreon subscriber, you will be grandfathered in at the current prices, and that will be for life. Just like even if you unsubscribe, you are a member of our Patreon Facebook group for life. And this goes for anyone who subscribes between now and April 1st, which is when we're going to do the price increase. All right, so that's the long and short of it. Of course, you can email DisneyDeciphered@gmail.com if you have any questions.
Okay, Joe, we got to close this out with our traditional Disney do or don't. Do you have one last hack that will save folks money?
Yeah, it's a bit of an oldie, but a goodie. Just a reminder that you can always add days or even add Park Hopper to your ticket while you're at the parks. You just need to go to a ticket booth and your ticket just needs to be not used up. So if you're thinking about, oh, do I want to buy a 3-day ticket or a 4-day ticket, and you're really like 50-50, then just buy the 3-day ticket, save the money up front. When you're there, you can decide whether you want to add that fourth day. If you want to add that fourth day, go to the ticket booth and do that. You can do that with Park Hopper as well. You can do that with the water park. Oh, and the other Disney do is, I meant to say this during the Park Hopper section, but like what will help with park hopping is it's getting warmer now. You get that water park on your check-in day. Go ahead and use that if you need to mix things up from the theme parks a little bit. All right, so that does it for this episode. Thank you again so much. Just a reminder, Patreon is going to get a little bit more expensive. Current Patreon subscribers, everyone who subscribes up through April 1st, will get the current rates for the rest of their lives. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We really appreciate it. Leslie, thank you for taking the time to talk to me. And I will see you crunching your dining plan spreadsheets and then saying no.
Thanks, Jim.